Good morning, everyone. Apologies once again for the delay in starting the webinar. We're having some technical problems, but it should be okay now. I do hope that everyone can see the presentation screen, but if not, please leave me a comment in the questions section on your right-hand side. Right. Sorry once again. This is an update on what has been going on in Saudi Arabia over the last few months. We'll be talking about healthcare and life science specifically. To those who have been following, this is it's been about 6 months since we've done our last healthcare webinar, and you will know from following our webinars that a lot has been changing recently, and of course, this builds on the change that has been happening over the last 3 or 4 years. So moving on to the next slide, just a small, just to start with some housekeeping and to make sure everyone can hear us okay. There will be time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them on your right-hand side. There will be a small panel that will enable you to type any questions, which we'll address at the end of this presentation. We'll also be providing contact details for the team at the embassy, our speakers, and the team here at AEI. So should you wish to get in touch directly at the end of the presentation, please feel free to do so. This will hopefully be about half an hour or maybe an hour. We'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. And just to introduce everybody, my name is Yazm Shukair. I'm a senior consultant at Arabian Enterprise Incubators. I'm joined here in Riyadh by Aya Matuk, Hala Al-Haj, and who lead on the healthcare sector and life science at the British Embassy. I'm also joined by Mike Delaney from Opportuni Advisor, Mohsen Al-Musalmani from Medical Radications Gate. Also joining us from the UK is Emma Johnson from Medilinks from Jeddah. Also Ayman Abedi, who leads on the life science sector at the Department for International Trade. Right. So just to quickly run you through the agenda for today, we're going to give you a quick and general overview on Saudi Arabia, and then we're going to get into more details about the healthcare and life science sector with an introduction from Mike Delaney. We will hear then from Mohsen Al-Musalmani about the Saudi Food and Drug Authority as well as the healthcare sector, followed by Emma, who will talk about the Global Health Exhibition taking place in September later this year. We will end this webinar, as I said, with a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write them at the right-hand side and we'll address them at the end of this webinar. Starting with AEI Saudi. So who are we? This slide gives you a quick overview of who we are and what we can help you to what we can help you navigate your way through the Saudi market. As I said, contact details will be available at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out after this webinar. In summary, we are basically DIT's delivery partner here in the Kingdom. We assist with everything from general inquiries to market research reports, hosted visits, and route to market strategies. We can also provide in-Kingdom support via our support services, including accommodation, transport, letters of invite for visas, and procurement. So basically, anything that's difficult to do for a foreign company in Saudi Arabia, we can provide or procure. Okay, moving on. I just wanted to start with general update of a few things that have been going on in the Kingdom. You'll see some pictures on the right-hand side of your screen, a few pictures of the events that we've had here in the Kingdom. In the top right-hand corner, there are the skydivers over Neom site. The pictures of a Saudi female runner taking part in a marathon on the left-hand side being beamed into the Kingdom Tower. We also had a Formula E race in December last year, and the first race of each Formula E for the next 10 years will be held here in Riyadh. You can see that picture below the two in the top. A couple of other pictures in the bottom right-hand corner show the design for one of the flagship hotels for the Red Sea project. I think it's important to state that there's no way I would have been saying any of these things just 3 years ago in Saudi. So the cultural impact of Vision 2030 is really starting to grip the kingdom. And it's not just the cinemas or major events, it's things like music bands and restaurants and cafes, street parties, more public entertainment, more things to do, more life. That's a real change, and for those who have visited the kingdom recently, will see evidence of that everywhere, really. We're also starting to see mega projects kick off. Most of these projects, such as NEOM, the Red Sea project, Qiddiya, and the CDC project, which is a massive housing project, have all now got teams, entities have been created, teams have been formed, CEOs and boards have been appointed, processes and policies are now in place. So although it's been fairly slow start, the scale of the task is so massive that it has taken them a bit of time to get themselves organized. The right people in the right place and the right processes behind them, but things are moving forward. NEOM have now awarded their PMC program management contract to AECOM, and the first camps and sites are being started up in the north of the kingdom. There's now a functioning airstrip up there as well, and you can actually book a flight from Riyadh to NEOM. So there's real commencement, if you like, for that program. Other mega projects are all at different levels of maturity in terms of delivery and also of design and concept. So there's still a lot of uncertainty around what many of these projects will look like. But what is encouraging is that there is money and these projects are moving forward. Funding has been allocated. There are teams on the government side, and there are new contractors who have been appointed. So there are opportunities and people winning business already. Economically, very briefly, obviously the kingdom's fortunes are much tied to the oil price, but with an increase in the price over the last 12 months and the sort of stabilization of about $60 to $70 a barrel, it's obviously good news for the kingdom. There's been a 48% increase in revenue year on year for the first quarter of 2019. A lot of that comes from the increased oil price, but actually non-oil revenue also rose up by 46% year on year with the new taxes, VAT that has been introduced recently, the removal of subsidies, and all of these generating significant revenue. In quarter one 2019, 41 billion riyals were raised from sales tax relating to VAT and sin taxes, which were also introduced recently. Those taxes from cigarettes, fast food, energy drinks, all of these sin taxes which were raised in quarter one 2018. So the coffers are looking reasonably healthy. Of course, there are a number of threats and systematic issues. The kingdom is expected to run a deficit this year of about 6 to 7%, but the measures that they've taken are beginning to bear fruit. There's also the constant challenge of managing government expenditure. These are definitely areas of concern, but the government expenditure has increased by 8% year on year, but most of that increase is in the salary bill for civil servants. That now stands about 122 billion SAR. So it's a huge percentage of the overall spending of the government. Other challenges that lie ahead are unemployment. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has set some very challenging targets for the reduction of unemployment, and it's still hovering around 12.5% mark, but nevertheless, there's no doubt that we're going to see greater number of Saudi nationals, specifically women, joining the workforce. A couple of other challenges. Vision 2030 is certainly gripping the cities, but there is still considerable concern about the regions and the more rural towns and cities that are outside of Riyadh, Jeddah, and Al-Khobar. We expect to see a greater emphasis on making sure rural provinces of the kingdom keep up with the Vision 2030 treatment. Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, also known as MBS, is a representative of the huge number of up to 70% of the Saudi nationals who are under the age of 35. Of course, following his visit to the UK last year, there was a plan of opening up the kingdom to further opportunities, specifically within 3 sectors: security, technology, and education. As a result of this, of course, we're on the ground here. We have seen a huge surge in the number of inquiries relating to these sectors. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman also pledged a 65 billion pound trade and investment package. And as I mentioned above, the wheels are definitely starting to turn. Right, so just to give you an overview of the routes to market quickly here, there are of course a number of ways that you can set up in the kingdom, and we'll just spend a few minutes on this slide to show you the difference between setting up through SAGIA, which is the Saudi Arabian General Investment Authority, and the partner route. Of course, both have their advantages and disadvantages. But recently we have seen a great success with SAGIA. The process has become much more easier than it was in previous years. I mean, in recent months, we have seen as many as 267 new licenses issued for foreign investors in the kingdom. That's a huge surge compared to last year. Right. Moving on to almost our last slide here. So, keys to the kingdom. We often give this advice to all of our clients. We call them keys to the kingdom because there are 5 important P's that we think really are the pillars for success in Saudi Arabia specifically. And that starts with planning. So making sure that when you consider Saudi Arabia, you have a robust plan in place. Patience. So Saudi Arabia requires a lot of patience. And of course, although things are moving quickly, patience is really important here. Presence. Those of you operating in the Middle East already know how important it is to build relationships and be seen by those who you want to work with. And of course, partner, choosing the right partner is important. So make sure you do your due diligence before signing any partnership agreements. And last but not least is payment. So perhaps the most important part of your plan is having the capability to manage how you'll get paid. So making sure that you minimize the risk of payment is important. Right, so we'll be moving on now to Mike Delaney from Opportuni Advisors, who will be speaking to us about the healthcare sector.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you can hear me clearly. I'm not actually going to use any slides, so forgive me for having you have to look at a sort of placeholder as I speak, but hopefully that won't cause you to fall asleep. As introduced, my name is Mike Delaney. I'm a partner with Opportuni Advisors. We're a consulting firm, essentially, but with a focus on strategy, design, as it relates to healthcare, particularly system design, clinical pathway design, those sorts of areas, and with a strong focus on digital transformation. We've been here in the kingdom for the last 2 years. In fact, I am now the general manager of a new entity that we set up a few months ago, Opportuni Advisors Saudi Arabia. So we've actually gone through the process with SAGIA that was just talked about of setting up a company, and I can attest to the fact that it was relatively straightforward. It certainly, from everything I've been told, is far smoother and quicker than it would have been a few years ago. And I think, in fact, it's further improved since we went through the process 6 or 8 months ago. So that's good news. The other thing I would emphasize also, and it just builds on the comments that were made by the previous speaker, is there really is, this transformation. I can only really speak specifically about the healthcare piece of this, and obviously it applies to the whole kingdom, but the scale of ambition, the passion and enthusiasm that I'm seeing in everybody that we work with for the vision and for making this happen is really quite inspiring. And I have to say the last couple of years has really been quite a highlight of my career, and wonderful people to work with, and it's really been a very enjoyable experience. There are challenges and frustrations, and I'll they were touched on a moment ago. I'll come back to those later. but it is a very rewarding environment in which to work. Just to say a little bit, without getting into huge detail, given the time constraints, about the scale of the transformation in healthcare. Really, every aspect of healthcare is being transformed all at the same time. So it is a very complex and ambitious project. We're moving from a system where essentially Ministry of Health did everything. They were the provider of services, they were the payer for services, they were the regulator of service, to one in which their role is going to be focused purely on the regulatory role going forward. And new organizations are being set up to focus on provision and also separately on payer or commissioning of services. In the payer piece of that, the idea eventually is to have a collection of probably around 20 accountable care organizations covering the entire kingdom. The first 4 of those are up and running, not as full accountable care organizations yet, but at the start of that journey. And the first step has been to, the term here is to cluster providers together. So on a geographic population, all the providers, and it will probably be something in the region of 8 to 12 hospitals and maybe anything between 80 to 100 or 120 primary healthcare centers, and covering a population of maybe about 1.25–1.5 million people coming together into a single entity. And this new cluster is then on a journey to become a fully fledged and independent ACO. The incubation of those clusters and the support to those clusters to take that journey is being overseen by a new entity that's being set up called a Health Holding Company, Health Holdco. And the strategy is that when its job is done, will disappear. And on the payer side, there is an entirely new national payer called PHAP, P-H-A-P, the Program for Purchasing, the Program for Healthcare Assurance and Purchasing. Those two, together with the ministry in its continuing regulatory role, are the sort of three legs of the stool going forward. There's a couple of important, probably an important theme to be aware of, I think, for anybody from a healthcare company perspective looking for opportunities and looking to engage with stakeholders here, to be aware of. The whole theme of value-based healthcare is right at the core of the transformation vision and the strategy, and often expressed as the triple aim or triple value healthcare. So that's all about improving healthcare. That picks up all the issues around quality, access, and so on. Better experience of healthcare, which is really the patient-centered piece, and not just, again, obviously something there about the experience in terms of the outcome achieved, but also the customer experience, if you like. And the third component is the value for money component. And so I think anybody who is engaging with a proposition that can be articulated in a way that speaks to that triple aim in some way, that would be a very helpful, a useful thing to think about how to do. One of the other enabling work streams, there's a lot of work, so I'm not going to try and describe the transformation in great detail, but one of the work streams that's worth spending a couple of minutes on is something called private sector participation. So this is, again, a big part of the vision, I think, across the whole of Vision 2030, but I can talk to it a little bit about how it plays out in healthcare specifically. So there is a desire to engage the private sector in a range of different ways in helping achieve the goals of the vision. And there's an organization called the National Center for Privatization, which is operating across the whole of government, all departments, providing the overarching framework for this. they have a framework, a documented framework and methodology for how they want to see these deals and transactions put together. Anybody in the UK who has experience of working with UK government and the Treasury Green Book and the guidance that the framework that is there for guiding how public-private partnerships are put together and developed, assessed, approved, and operated, would find the NCP, they call it their privatization handbook. They would find that very familiar because it follows a very similar process to the Treasury Green Book, and I think again that's reassuring. A lot of what you see here in the kingdom is not that is not totally unfamiliar when you come here. It is because a lot of what's being put in place has been done very carefully after assessing international best practice and obviously then adopting it to the local context. But that desire for private sector participation, I think, generates a range of opportunities. I can talk specifically to a few. At a cluster level, the system is looking for organizations who have experience of operating that sort of accountable care type system or major sort of functions within that system to partner with and as operating partners to help move the system forward here, and also to build capability, knowledge transfer, and so on. There are specific opportunities around individual service areas, and particularly as new care pathways are designed and implemented and have more digital interventions included in them, then providers of those digital tools and interventions, I think, have a real opportunity as well to engage, and the system is actively looking, and there's a delegation going to the UK next week, in fact, meeting with organizations that may have capability and interest in collaborating with the system here, all the way through then to full PPP type structures that the NCP in particular take an interest in, whether that's around the entire sort of outsourcing and operation of laboratory services, for example, which is one of the things that is happening, or in relation to new infrastructure deals, where new facilities are required, whether that be hospitals or increasingly probably large primary or community-based facilities, because there is a need to shift the system away from hospital-based provision and much more towards primary care and community-based services. So a very wide range of opportunities indeed there. Some of the challenges touched on earlier, but you do have to be careful about well, there's quite sort of cumbersome processes to work through sometimes just to end up with clarity around who you're exactly, who you are contracting with, how that's going to work, what's the basis on which payment is being made, etc. Being clear about the timeline for payments coming through so you can manage the cash flow associated with that. So the point that was made about patience, I think, is very important. One of the things that I think will make life a lot easier in a couple of months' time is that both the Health Holdco and FAP, although they're up and running, they haven't yet been given their full delegated powers. So as entities, they don't yet have the legal authority to contract directly with people. So this is, this means that, and this has been our experience, we've had to contract through local Saudi entities nominated by those organizations. It complicates things a little bit. It puts additional sort of links in the chain, in the supply chain, so to speak, which then potentially impact the speed with which payments and so on can be processed. But it's getting better, and as these entities are able to deal directly or contract directly on their own behalf, that will ease things a great deal. We've taken the view to set up a Saudi entity so that we can then contract directly with the likes of Health Holdco or FAP or the ministry indeed. But But the other alternative, as was mentioned earlier, is to have a select a Saudi partner that you can work with and to make those connections. So a lot of things to think about. In quick summary, I would say, being very clear about the proposition and how it fits into what is happening here, the goals that are being trying to achieve. How are you going to, what you're bringing in terms of a product or a service is going to contribute to the triple aim, if you like. But then also structurally, how are you actually going to set yourself up to do business in an efficient way? What legal entity structure or partnership structures do you need? And just making sure that you've got the plan that covers all of those things, as well as patience built in a sense, that recognizing the demands that will be on cash flow management and so on as you go through the process. But I'd finish by saying it's a really exciting environment. I don't think you'll regret getting engaged. It's the level of change and transformation, and therefore opportunity, is huge. For all those that take the step, if you're not there already, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Our next speaker is Mohsen from Medical Regulations K.
That's okay. Just good. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mohsen Muslimani. I'm the General Manager of MRG. We are a consultation company. I'm ex-SFDA. I was the Director of Communication Information with the Saudi Food and Drug Authority for more than 5 years. What I'm going to talk about today is just, I'll go through, we don't have much time. I know the SFDA thinks it's the main pain, let's say, more. Okay, it's the main issue of how to enter you find the right before you find the right partner or enter the Saudi market. You need to understand what is the regulation, and is it how we can comply with it, and is it something that we as a manufacturer, overseas manufacturer, is there a requirement that they cannot meet, and or special needs for Saudi Arabia? I'll try to just summarize it, and after that you are most welcome to send us an email or any details that you're looking for regarding SFDA, and we will immediately answer all your questions if you couldn't cover it after the sessions. So Saudi Arabia is still is the largest in Gulf area. They are the largest budget that they have, the expenditure of the money that they're doing it for the healthcare. They are I believe it's a double size of the whole Gulf region. From 2017, they have 484 hospitals, big hospitals in the government and the private sectors, and I believe this number went more higher than this to 2019. And as Mr. Mike said, with the privatizations, now we are expecting to have a lot of projects, a huge project, billions of reals spending for hospitals that is taking care of through the private sector. So we will see another booming in that area. From the government side, they've been told that they are planning to have the coming 5 years, 180 billion rial. It's going to be spent on the healthcare sector. So for SFDA, let's focus on how to enter the market. I'm just going to give you a brief about what is SFDA, what is this authority. This thing before 2003, there were no let's say any control about what is coming and as a medical device or not. Anyone can what they call it, assume or claim that this toy is a medical device and it can enter. But from 2003, after that they established the SFDA and they start running in 2007, and the SFDA they started for food and drug, and after that they added the sector of medical device control to control and maintain the Saudi market. So the vision and the mission of the medical device sector, that, like the rest of the authorities, to ensure the safety, effectiveness, and quality of medical device. And to do that, in my coming slides, I'll explain how they control the medical device and make sure that all these medical devices is effective and there is no risk for on the patient in Saudi Arabia. So the medical device sector is covering medical device, medical IVD, in vitro diagnostics, contact lenses, a solution for it, and medical eye glasses. They are all fall under the medical device, plus the laser surgical equipment for cosmetics and their accessories. So basically, if you are a UK manufacturer and you want to enter the Saudi market, before or after you find your distributor, SFDA, they require that they need to make sure that your product is registered in one of the 5 jurisdictions, which is Australia, Canada, Japan, and the US currently. But in the future, I'll just talk about what's the future plan. Maybe next year they will change this. But for now, if you have one of the 5 jurisdictions, you are licensed to sell your product in these countries, you're welcome to enter the Saudi market, and you register the product, and they will approve or make sure that your license is active, and then they will give you the permission for your product to enter the market. And in April 2019, they announced that I think within a year there will be no need for this license like a CE mark or FDA approved. They will do a Saudi license, and in this case you need to provide all your technical files, clinical trials, all the files that it is very important for you and top confidential with the company to share it with a distributor, but this will be asked as then they will issue a Saudi certificate like similar to the CE mark. And how you can do that, the SFDA, they're asking to have an authorized representative, legal authorized representative, and this authorized representative has to be based in Saudi Arabia. Like MRG, we work as an authorized representative, and this authorized representative, once you signed with him the AR agreement from the SFDA, it's a template from the Saudi Food and Drug Authority. Once you have it approved from SFDA, they can be allowed to start registering your product. And how do they register your product? Let's say if it's MRG, we can bundle your list of product. It depends on the performance, technical performance, and intended use, and the same class. So it's not like registering product by product, it's registering application by application, and all these products can be under one license. But for sure you need a specialized person who can know and has the experience to bundle your product according to their needs. And after you have the MIDMA, you own this license like you own the CE mark. So even if you're doing it through your distributor or through a third party, you have the right to have the license, and you can share it with any importer in Saudi Arabia. So there is no restriction of having only one importer. You can have multiple 100 importers, but you need to have one authorized representative to represent you in front of SFDA for the registration and for any post-marketing requirement like adverse event or a recall. The authorized representative, he will handle all the communication with your importer to make sure that these affected devices will be treated as after you submit your corrective action plan and how to close these recalls. So who can be your authorized representative? As I mentioned, your distributor or importer can be an authorized representative, health consultation company like MRG, and pharmaceutical consultation, of course. Or if you have a scientific office, you can have your all the license or the AR license all under your account, and you register your product direct from your scientific office account. So when they start this, they didn't came up with the immediate action of closing all the devices not registered in Saudi Arabia. So they said, okay, we'll go through the first thing is the high risk. In 2012, they started with the high risk devices. Class 3 or the high risk IVD, and from 2016 they start the restriction for medium risk, and in January 2016 as well, the low risk of IVD there is being restricted to enter without the license. Then they came up to the last 2018 in September, the class for non-sterile and measuring class 1. This was the lowest risk of the medical devices. Then they closed all kind of devices. They're not allowed to enter the Saudi market without being registered, and they have the MDMA, which is Medical Device Marketing Authorization license. And the prices for these is very important for the manufacturer, of course, because 95% of the manufacturers, they are paying for everything like they are paying for the CE mark or the FDA. It depends on the class, so it's between $4,000 to $6,000. It depends on the class of the devices in that application, from class 1 to class 3. And this is a 3 years, of course, license, unless your provided license will expire before that, and you can renew it with only like $1,300. Let's say you have a CE mark, and this CE mark will close or will expire after a year from now. So they will give you 1 year license, and after that, they will ask for you to renew. And for the British companies, before I talk about MRG, one last thing concerning the British company. We don't know till now the Brexit. Is it going to be still within the union, or they're going to be independent? So from now till you have this Brexit issue finalized, I don't believe there is any problem with the licensing, because SFDA, once they issue the new law of having a Saudization, they're not requiring CE mark. So you can even register a product even if it's not CE mark, as long as you have all the technical files and all the papers that they're asking for. And most probably it's going to be, it is 95% MDNR, the new MDNR requirement for in Europe. And even if you're not having all this, because an MDNR, they gave the manufacturers extension till 2024 and to fully comply for the MDR. And SFDA, they will accept this, but they need justifications. They need to understand why you don't have all this information ready. And it's a lot of work, and this is why if you have a distributor, you need to have the distributor has to have a really good team to manage this, or you can what they call it, rely on third-party companies specialized in these things to make your life easier. Make sure that you have registered all the product and you're only focusing to find the right partner or partners to sell your product. Brief about us, as I said, MRG, we are dealing with more than 200 medical device manufacturers worldwide. We started at 2012. And we are assisting more than 30 local companies, and we start even working with hospitals. Now we are the consultancy department or a company for John Hopkins Hospital in Aramco. They are relying on MRG as a regulatory affairs body just to help them make sure that all the product is registered before they enter the market, and when they have a direct purchasing, they're using our assist to be the authorized representative for these manufacturers and register the product. And allow me just to share with you 2 slides. It's going to take just a few seconds to show with whom we are dealing and who we are we are representing in Saudi Arabia with the SFDA. That's it. Thank you very much. And for sure, as I said, if you need any questions need more details, and we don't have time for this to cover it this webinar, you're most welcome to send us direct your questions, and we will answer all your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohsen. That was very useful. Next, we have Emma Johnson from Medilink UK. Emma is going to talk about the Global Health Exhibition, which is coming up in Saudi Arabia later in September.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll start by explaining who Medilink are for those of you who don't know. We are the UK's largest trade association of life sciences companies. We run 9 exhibitions currently in 7 markets, one of which is the Global Health. So we'll run the UK Pavilion there as the sole UK agents. I've been with Medilink for over 18 months now. Part of my role is to work on the exhibition side of things. I'm also contracted to the DIT as a
Hello. Emma, hello. I think we're having some troubles with Emma. Apologies, everyone. Seems like Emma has dropped off. Could be a connection problem. So we're just trying to contact Emma to bring her back on the line. Sorry, everyone, if you can bear with us for a few minutes. Right, so meanwhile,
Hello, can you hear me?
Ayman, would you like to take over? Talk about the trade mission later this year?
Hi, yes, Yazin. I just wanted to quickly go through an event that we are hosting here in Saudi from the 8th to the 10th of September. We are going to be organizing a trade mission focusing on healthcare and life sciences. our goal today is to encourage UK companies who are interested to take part of this trade mission, especially in the life sciences sector, to get in touch with us, especially companies that are looking at local manufacturing in Saudi, private labeling, investing in Saudi. These are key areas that we are focusing on in terms of life sciences. The trade mission will include meetings with government organizations like the Ministry of Health, the Government Investment Authority, the Saudi Food and Drug Administration, as well as private companies, private life sciences providers. The other thing is we have established a new branch of the UK government called the Science Innovation Network. They support companies, UK companies that are looking at medical research in terms of maybe companies over the world funding some of this research. So companies that are looking at Saudi Arabia, for example, to for possible joint ventures or collaborations with Saudi companies that can invest into these UK companies and help reach these, do this research. So I'll put you back now. I think Emma's back on the line, so I'll let her take over. Thank you.
Hi, sorry about that. The internet in Sheffield can't keep up. So, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Emma, there's some issue with your voice. I think it's the mic.
Is that any better?
No, actually, I think there's something with the mic. Sound like there's some echo with your voice. Okay, can you try again?
Yeah, how's that?
Still, it's not working. So what do you think if we had the question and answer at the moment from the audience, and then maybe your audio sound will be much better? What do you think, Emma? Okay, great.
Okay, apologies again, everyone. It seems like Emma, there's a problem with Emma's microphone. So we're gonna start with the question and answers now. We received.
Yezen, if I can maybe just finish on what I was saying. If any company is interested in the trade mission, please get in touch with us, and we will have to swift through the companies because we have limited availability. Also, the Science and Innovation Network, if any companies into research and looking to explore this opportunity, please get in touch with us and we will take that forward. Thank you. Thanks, Yezen.
Thanks, Ayman. All right, so the first question, which is a simple question, will this PowerPoint be available online or sent to participants? Yes, we will follow up with everyone who attended this webinar to share the slides, and the webinar will be uploaded on YouTube. The second question is from Kimberly. You mentioned clusters of people collaborating. If we were looking to collaborate with larger providers to complement their offering, do you have a mechanism for bringing people together to find each other? I'll address this question to Mike.
Yes, I think that sounds like it was related to my description of the sort of structures that are being set up to implement the changes, and the clusters were the stepping stone to ACOs. I think at this stage, I'd say there's a number of initiatives being undertaken by the health holding company to reach out and try and find collaborative partners, but there isn't any sort of whizzy technology platform solution that the sort of the LinkedIn platform or the Facebook or whatever it might be. They are trying to put additional pieces of that in place. It's worth being aware and trying to perhaps get access to Ministry of Health website, where they actually sometimes put out requests for proposals for different needs that they have, that sometimes they use that portal, the Ministry of Health portal, to do that. There's material that's that would be available in bilingually normally. But if there's a particular interest that you have, and you just want to drop me an email, I'd be happy to try and make a direct connection for you, with somebody in the health hold company that you could have a more direct conversation with, if that would be helpful, because I don't think that the formal processes are fully established yet for that. As I say, they're reaching out, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're finding everybody that actually is interested. So if there is that sort of interest, then I'm happy to help make that connection for you. So please get in touch afterwards.
Thanks, Mike. Next.
Yes, and can I just add one point? There is a dedicated life sciences page on LinkedIn. I think if any company is looking at Saudi, they have an interest in Saudi, they can check out the LinkedIn page and just log in their interest. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ayman. Next question we have is from Carly. I work for a UK manufacturer for dental implants. Is there any room in the healthcare project for dental?
There's a company here called Baghlaf. They specialize in the dental implant market. If they have an interest, they can contact me, and I can take that forward with the local company.
I can, it's Mike here. I can just add one other thing, is that a part of the transformation plan, there has recently been developed a new national dental or oral health care strategy. So as you might imagine, when you develop something like that and you do the sort of needs analysis to understand where you're starting from, you highlight a whole wide range of unmet need. So there is a general expectation that there will be significant investment in developing dental services, dental clinics, and dental laboratories to support those clinics, which would be using the sort of products that you're talking about. So that is an area that I think will be expanding quite significantly.
Thank you, Mike. The next question we have is, what regulatory requirements are in place for provision of clinical services, consultancy, and clinical education services from overseas providers? Questions come from Jackie.
Well, clinical trials is new. With the regulation is new. They are trying to. They just announced a few months back the regulations and requirement for clinical trials, and they keep changing it, developing it to better position. But if you have like in the questions, certain questions, we can, as an MRG, you can drop us an email. We can forward it to SFDA, answer all the questions related to clinical trials. If you are, I just want to understand, are you like providing the service of like clinical trial, or you are a manufacturer, you want to do a clinical trial in Saudi Arabia?
I mean, again, just to build on that a little bit, it may not be right on the sort of money in terms of what your focus was, but in terms of broader consulting, training, and so on, there is not a specific regulatory environment that you particularly need to worry about. I'm speaking really here as a consulting business who is working here. That has not been an issue for us. There, I think the challenges are more about working with the right. If you don't have your own legal entity here, working with the right Saudi partner so that you have a vehicle through which you could actually contract with your client to provide the services that you're talking about. If you're talking about more a broader question about the provision of health services, obviously there are both Saudi and international private sector hospitals operating. There was a law, the law as I understand it, I'm not an expert in this area, until quite recently, was that international companies were only allowed to provide hospital services, but couldn't provide other healthcare services. And I understand that was changed recently, so that now there isn't that restriction. And in fact, whilst there'll be rules and regulations around how those services are provided, you are, with the appropriate licenses, obviously, international companies would be allowed to provide the full range of healthcare services. So if you were focused on some sort of primary healthcare services, home care services, other community-based services, then there isn't a law now that would prevent international companies from providing those services, providing they've applied for and been given the appropriate license.
All right.
Okay, so because of lack of time, we're gonna deal with the rest of the question. We will email you separately later with answers to your question. But I'm just gonna brief you a bit about the Global Health Exhibition. Sorry, Emma couldn't be there, but we will share with you her slides. So the Global Health Exhibition, which will take place from 10 to 12 of September 2019 here in Riyadh in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It is the biggest exhibition here in the kingdom, and exhibiting or visiting this exhibitions provide the perfect platform for companies to promote their latest innovation in healthcare, whether it was products or services, to some of the region's largest institutes and some of the key decision makers who will be there. The 2019 edition of this event will welcome over 10,000 attendees, ranging from medical services provider to healthcare products dealers and even distributors, key decision makers, and government officials. So companies do benefit from either participating as delegates, or you could actually think about exhibiting at the exhibition itself. MediLinks is considered the agency who will facilitate whether you want to visit or you want to exhibit. They will help you in many ways. And if you even came as a delegate, you will get a lot of positive outcomes, including meeting the right audience. You will see a lot of face-to-face connection. You will target visitors over this 3-day show. You get ahead of your competition. You will have more visibility and take advantages of the visitor traffic. You will increase your brand exposures, definitely maximize your experience at the Global Health Exhibition. You will be able to launch your solution and services, and definitely network with a decision maker, whether it was from the governmental and the private sides, and get up to date and innovative. Stay up to date with the latest informations. I think this is the information that we have provided for the exhibition. We will share Emma's slides, and she will be able to answer any inquiries you have for the exhibition. We will definitely share her contact detail, whether you will be someone who will exhibit or visit the exhibition. I think we come up to the end of the webinar. So thank you all for attending today.
Again, we apologize for the minor technical problems that have taken place during this webinar, and apologize for not addressing all the questions due to time constraints. What we'll do is we'll follow up with everyone who attended this webinar to send the contact details. And just to end this, I'd like to thank Mohsen, Emma, Mike, and Aya, Hala, and Ayman for supporting this webinar. Any of you who are interested to coming to Saudi Arabia, please do get in touch. And if again, you're interested about the Global Health Exhibition, please be in touch with Emma or myself and Aya and Hala. Thanks again for dialing in, and the webinar will be uploaded on YouTube for anyone who has missed it. Thank you.
Thanks, Yazin.